Namaskar. Hello and welcome to 𝗶𝗲 channel. I'm your host 𝗧𝗵𝗲. This is a quick monologue about the EU-India relationship, the free trade agreement that just got agreed upon. There are still some steps that needs to be done until it is ratified and things start moving. However, we are already hearing that the IMAC is back in front of burner, and we are also hearing that many Indian companies are setting up, either registering companies or setting up shop in Cyprus, which is the entry point into Europe. So much is happening. These are all things that took place in the last 24 to 48 hours. And I just wanted to give you an idea of what compelled EU, which has been dragging its feet for close to 20 years, from that they decided to now, they said, okay, we have to get this deal in place and get our independence out from both US and China. And we're going to talk about, in this slide deck that I'm going to present to you, how US was putting pressure on Europe and how China was putting pressure on Europe. Both of them were putting pressure. I would still say US's pressure was a lot gentler than China. China was brazen about it. So I'm going to show you all the instances that took place, how EU tried to fight back, and I think it is fighting back now with this deal with India. How India and US are going to navigate their own free trade agreement is a topic for another day. And that's also, we've been talking about it yesterday. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗖𝗁𝗀𝗀 was on our channel. To go back and watch that, because there are lots of headwinds, crosswinds, tailwinds, what have you, each one having some opposition or the other to the deal from the United States side. And now, with all these things happening, maybe the US will get its act together. We'll just wait and see on that. Let's get back to EU and India. And a request to all of you to please like this video, and if you have not already subscribed to our channel, do subscribe to our channel. This EU-India pivot, why is it so important for Europe? Well, first thing is, all countries are now realizing that the rule-based system is fraying. And people keep saying that the rule-based system is something that America has designed so that it gets the upper hand, and it is time for America to let go, because it is no longer the same powerful nation that it once was. So at Davos, what happened? The Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, described a rupture in global norms, while Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, cautioned against a world without rules. So you are talking about both scenarios, too much rules and too little rules. The situation mirrors the ancient Indian concept of 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗖𝗁, which is the strong devour the weak. I mean, this was there thousands of years before Darwinian theory of the survival of fittest. But again, who's checking, right? 𝗧𝗵𝗲 is going back to the first avatar of Matsya. So, and this also mirrors something that was explained in George Orwell's Animal Farm. So what happened to Europe? It got caught between the United States pressure and Chinese overreach. How did it happen? First of all, as soon as Trump took office, US tariff threats and pressure tactics, that is Greenland, trade leverage, all these things have revived European fears of arbitrary market access. By the way, Europe has also announced something called as the Euro Stack, which they are saying they are going to use and develop apps such as the normal things that we use, Microsoft apps and other apps such as, SAP is already based out of Europe, accounting software. So there is a lot of powwow going on between United States and European Union, and many things are going to come out now when the dust settles down. Also, the EU lawmakers have stalled transatlantic trade progress amid uncertainty, because as soon as Trump's statement finished on Greenland, EU said that we are breaking our agreement with the United States. So that one is now, that has to be resurrected. I don't know how, but again, some agreement appears to have been reached as far as Greenland is concerned. Only time will tell what exactly was that. Now, that is the US pressure. On the other side, China has been doing overcapacity. See, China is a member of the World Trade Organization. And according to World Trade Organization, there are some rules that tell you can only produce so much, not produce the hell out of anything. But if you take a look at solar panels, electric cars, steel, anything that China touched, they just overproduced like mad. And then what we saw was for months, ships carrying the BYD electric cars benched at various ports in Europe wanting to dock, and the United States and Europe were just not willing to admit these BYD cars in. You know, in India, you can see some BYD cars. I think they are being sold in Goa and in Pondicherry. I don't understand how that happened, but be that as it may, BYD has found a way into India. I saw some of these cars. They actually look pretty good. So, but China's problem is it overproduces anything and everything because they think they can take everybody else out of the market. Japan Steel was one, US Steel is another one. Both of them are chomping at the bit at the way China has tried to completely capture the world steel market. I'm just giving you an example of how Chinese overreach works. So when EU tried to hit back at China by looking at how Chinese EVs were being subsidized, China imposed tariffs of up to 42.7% on EU dairy products in December 2025, escalating trade tensions. So you're seeing all these small things keep happening like bubbles up and down, and that has really forced EU's hand, in my opinion, said, look, we got to do something about this. Now, if you take a look at the economic slowdown and the vulnerabilities in the EU, we're just looking at three economies here. Germany is growing at 0.2%, France 0.7%, Italy 0.9%. Thousands of German firms have filed for insolvency with losses exceeding close to 57 billion euros. The Volkswagen, some of its factories have shut down for the first time. Germany is in a lot of pain. Now, this contagion is probably going to spread to other countries in Western Europe, and this EU-India FTA comes as a lifeline. Of course, ratification still needs to be done. Both parliaments and individual countries, 27 countries in EU, have to also ratify it. And I don't know how that's going to happen. Ursula von der Leyen has her work cut out. Europe faces deindustrialization, lagging productivity, and acute dependence on China for critical inputs such as heavy rare earths from China and many other things. So for Europe, for EU, India emerges as a strategic alternative. Why? Because Europe is trying to seek diversification away from US as well as from China. And who is left standing with the same kind of economies of scale? India. India stands out as a fast-growing, large-scale economy offering two-way trade, not one-sided dumping, which is exactly what China does, one-sided dumping. A prospective EU-India corridor would touch 2 billion people and nearly 25% of the global GDP. EU-India goods trade hit 120 billion in 2024, up 90% over a decade. And this is a solid platform that can scale even more because it is expected that this will go up to $800 billion. That's substantially higher than what India-US trade hopes to achieve, which is closer to $500 billion. So what is this mother of all deals? What it does is it cuts tariffs, opens services and public procurement, protects geographical indications, locks in trade and substantial and sustainability commitments, lowers non-tariff barriers, streamlines standards, and establishes a robust investment protection framework. Why is it important? EU gains a first mover advantage in a high growth market such as India and a more resilient clean tech and advanced manufacturing supply chain. That's what Europe has. And India gains high value market access, higher quality and compliance standards, and stronger export credibility. Like I told you, right, on garments alone, India stands poised to completely absorb the $30 billion industry that Bangladesh enjoys today, because Indian laws are more reliable, plus the quality is perhaps better, and the only thing India needs to control now is to bring down its manufacturing cost, so that it can really give Bangladesh a run for its money. This is where the IMAC corridor is now going to be of importance. The India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor is designed to build resilient, diversified supply chains across regions. The EU landlocked states stand to benefit via integrated logistics and port connectivity. The corridor complements Europe's push. See, the entry point is Cyprus. So how does it get to Cyprus? By ship. From where? Most likely from Israel. You've seen that thing, that port of Haifa. So in IMAC, Israel also is a beneficiary. That's what I wanted to say. And as this thing goes through, both Saudi Arabia as well as UAE will also stand to benefit. And this doesn't end run around all the other things that China has been trying to do, that US has been trying to do to shut out everybody else. How the other thing that India is also doing is it is signing trade deals left, right, and center. For example, it has already signed an FTA deal with United Kingdom. So other countries that are not part of EU may also be encouraged to come and make deals with India, because once it touches mainland Europe in an independent way, that's a whole new ball game. Bilateral initiatives span India-Germany cooperation, because this is one of the stronger ones. They are cooperating on semiconductors, hydrogen, renewables, critical metals, submarine plants, and so on and so forth. And you might have heard General Shankar talk about how even US countries, US companies like the BAE are getting a lot of stuff done in India now. And a new EU-India security and defense partnership now covers maritime security, cyber security, and counter-terrorism. So you might ask me a question: what happened? Europe was so pro-Islamic and suddenly it has reverted course. See, these are all strategic things. EU thinks that strategically it is important for them to align with India today. Likewise, probably India thinks that it is strategically important to align with EU today. For how long is anybody's guess. As long as both sides think that they are winning, that would be the key indicator that will make everybody happy. For Europe, India offers a second economic engine, large enough to matter, stable enough to trust, and independent enough to avoid coercive leverage. This is what they are afraid US and China are doing to them. For India, the EU is a high-value, rules-heavy market that encourages industrial upgrading, diversification, and strategic insurance against volatility elsewhere, like US and China. Trade is no longer just a commercial, it's a pillar of economic security. Now, some of the things that red lines are there that are being breached here, and only time will tell if there's going to be a consequence for that. See, what will happen to market access? It will rely on phased liberalization, strict rules of origin, and safeguards to balance EU assurances with India's protection needs. Sustainability standards, like for example, does India produce ethically compliant products? Remember, I told you February 1 is a bad day for Bangladesh garment exporting companies, because suddenly the LDC tag is going away and they'll be required to comply with many rules, especially worker environment standards and things of that nature. And that essentially would mean that many Bangladesh garment factories may have to close down. The digital chapter that is now starting between EU and India should really, usher in a new way of looking at things. All these things like TEPA, this needs to be fast-tracked and make sure that the ratification takes very, very quick time. IMAC segments that are still not finished need to be finished quickly, and critical input should be de-risked through joint sourcing and processing of, like for example, processing of rare earths, battery materials, and so on and so forth. And a clean tech procurement compact should be launched. I mean, there are lots of little things. You can freeze it here and you can go and look at the bullet points that we have mentioned here. The conclusion is that this is about to make interdependence safer, not abandoning autonomy. EU FTA with India. Europe reduces single point dependencies. India expands options without surrendering policy space. By the way, there is many a slip between the cup and the lip. There will be pressure put on by China and US. They may even combine together to give India a lot of pain. So EU and India will have to weather a fair amount of storms, in my opinion, and how they do that together and with resolve and purpose will really tell how well this program is going to play out. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel. Hold on, there are some questions. Never mind. I'm just going to take a quick look at the questions and do my best to answer them. Srinivas wants to know, sir, once this deal comes into effect, how much balance of trade deficit favors India or Europe, and what will be the volume of trade expected to say approximately in billion? It's starting at 120 billion. I think India has a surplus of about 15 billion now, and I only see that thing growing a little bit more. But what Europe gets is a sustainable product manufacturer who will be able to comply with all their data safeguards and other compliance with regulations and so on and so forth. For example, Indian garment industry is compliant with many of the requirements of EU, which means EU may be happy to pay a little bit more because the Indian companies are more compliant. So this is another thing that's going to work against the Bangladeshi garment manufacturers. Next question, Magnet Ranga wants to know, has the wheel of history come full circle? There was an age when every nation in the world wanted to come to Bharat for trade. This is happening again. Ironically, Columbus had landed in America. How true, Magnet Rangaji. See, what is really going on is, while yes, India looks promising, India still needs to do a lot of work. For example, along the infrastructural highways, things are good. But once you move away to the hinterlands, things have to still get a little bit more, upgradation. But the Udan scheme, where India is encouraging smaller cities to have their own airports, is going to help, because the more we do this, the prosperity and the reach is going to spread more and more, and that's only good for the local population as well as the entire Indian population. For example, who thought that semiconductors would be started in Meghalaya? I was the first one to mention that if you want to really get seriously into semiconductor space, you need to go to a place which has accessible water, clean water, and tons of it, and not worry about where that water will come from. And Meghalaya, with Cherrapunji being there, a lot of water there, that fits the bill perfectly. That's why I think India is making it a policy to start putting plants in Meghalaya. So once you have the infrastructure, I'm sure the engineering and the other technical expertise will follow through. So that's all I have. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.